And we're just up in the great north of Minneapolis area, and 15 or so inches of snow came while we've been here, and it's been quite a mess. So I'm in the La Quinta, and we're heading back to Wisconsin where there's no snow. It's kind of funny, just how it happens sometimes. But let's get to Tom Fishburne. Reinventing marketing. This year we're disrupting how we do marketing. Didn't we do that last year? Last year we transformed marketing. No, that was 2 years ago. Oh, right. We're reinventing marketing. That's about time. Okay, and one of the things you get after 40 years of marketing consulting experience is you see this over and over and over. But Tom says there's some truth in what Bill Gates said in 1995. We always overestimate the change that will occur in the next 2 years, and we underestimate the change that will occur in the next 10. I don't know. I think we just basically don't know the future. Sorry, you just can't get there. Organizations can get stuck in a rut and resist change, and yet we simultaneously have the tendency to overstate the change, which can lead to jumping on the bandwagon. I want to highlight that. Jumping on the bandwagon of shiny new things like NFTs. Geez, I hardly did one show on NFTs. Why? Because I didn't think they were anything to talk about, which peaked this time last year. Okay. Navigating change is a long-term constant in marketing. Yes. Marketing is about trying to envision the future, which is exactly why we have a great challenge in trying to be data-driven. Data can't drive you into the future. It can only analyze the past. No matter how good an analyst you are, you don't know. There's no data from the future. It's all in the past. It's all in the rearview mirror. So just imagine trying to drive your car down the road just looking at a rearview mirror. You'd have some idea. No, you wouldn't. Just because it was straight all the way in the past doesn't mean it's going to be straight the next 50 feet. Right? So you're out of luck. Oh, good. The heater turned off. Maybe that'll make the sound better. I doubt it. Anyway, just picture that metaphor. Trying to drive by looking in the rearview mirror. That's what you're asking when you say we're going to be data-driven, just to put it in perspective. So there's been, in my book, I talk about the two fundamental lies. And one is that we have all the data, which, of course, we just touched on. And the second is because we have all the data, we know what you'll do, which, of course, is another fundamental lie. And it will always be true, just in case you don't know. The best you can do, you say, well, how does when an airplane takes off, how do they know it's going to get where it goes? How do they know it's going to get off the ground this time instead of, well, it doesn't always get off the ground. Sometimes they crash. But the principle that allows us to effectively build into the future is the principle that we can repeatedly test in the present, and as we eliminate different variables and we find the causal connections in the physical world, we can then quantify those effects, and we can generate explanations, and we can eventually, as it's repeated and repeated, get to theory. It's the theory that lets us go in the future. If you say, well, we're testing everything, well, I would contend you can't, because you have to narrow your test to isolate the other factors. It's why we play a game. We play a football game on the same field with the two teams. You can use AI and you can compare the 1965 Packers with the Patriots of 2020, let's say, or we better go back a couple more years, of 2018. Yeah, sure, you can compare those with AI, but you can never test them because you don't have the head-to-head, and we need the head-to-head to isolate causal variables. That's why A/B splits are so effective. But you need to extrapolate into the future. You need more than data. You need repetitive testing, isolation of causal variables, explanation, retest, and eventually theory. Okay, so Tom was impressed with an article called "The Changing Face of Marketing," and I actually went over and I clicked this link, which is available. If you go to WDMA, you can get the show notes every day if you subscribe, which is free. The article was about everything changing. Well, the intro to the article was, and we may go over there and look at it, but a lot of the things, what was interesting is, it was about the changing sales force and how computers might affect marketing. And it's things that don't change as much now as they did then, but they're constantly in a flux. If everyone fires their field sales force, it may be effective to go knock on doors. I once asked Jack Miller, do you think there's enough business in the Chicago metro area that, if you hired somebody just to go out to your best customers in the Chicago metro area, Jack was the founder of Quill, if you just hired someone to go knock on doors and say, thank you for your business, do you think that would generate enough additional business, enough additional sales and profits to pay for that salesperson to do that? And he said, oh, I'm sure it would. And I said, is there enough for two? He said, oh, I'm sure there is. I said, so the question isn't whether you should have a sales force, but how many and how to manage them. I think I used to torment Jack a little bit. But, he was very smart, and I don't think enough people challenged him like that. Anyway, we got to be friends. Change is the dominant factor in every business today, and the ability to master and exploit change has become one of the most sought-after management skills. Interesting, isn't it? Probably still true today, because the guy with the hand on the tiller has to be able to look into the future, to some extent. Okay, this is particularly true in marketing, where the very tempo of change is constantly quickening. I'm not sure that's true, but it is constantly. Change is change. And until you understand that marketing is about predicting the future, then you haven't grasped the challenge of marketing. Accounting is sorting out the past, sorting out the financial data, but marketing is mainly looking at the history and deciding where to go next, which is probably why the tenure is so short. So even while adapting to change, a company's marketing effort must reflect internal constancy of purpose and an external constancy of image. So you have to keep some things the same. You have to know what to change and what not to change. And Mark Ritson is excellent on this. He talked about how I don't remember the name of the beer, but they changed their colors to red because they're from Liverpool, and they've always been green, but they sponsor the Liverpool Premier team. And when they were in the finals for the EuroLeague, I guess, and I'm not a huge soccer fan. I know a little bit about it, but I don't quite understand how all those things intertwine. But Liverpool changed or the beer company changed their label from green to red, or it could be the other way around, just for the playoffs. And Ritson said, you get the attention and you play with your logo, but everybody knows who it is, and I think that's absolutely sound. So, safe is risky. That was from last week. He said we got to play it safe, cut spending, pull back investment, and also completely reinvent how we do business. And that is basically the challenge of business. And this is the other one. We need to stay focused on our marketing priorities and not get distracted by every shiny new look, squirrel. That's maybe my favorite Fishburne. It looks like I didn't loop the the WDMA info down below. Consumers will always pay attention to our ads in the 80s. Consumers will visit our brand as if we just make it a .com, the 90s. Consumers want to be our friends and like us on Facebook, the aughts. Consumers want us to follow them with their personal data. the tens. Consumers want to hang out with our brand in the metaverse. I don't remember that one, but that is another good one. Sometimes the follow-up cartoons or commercials are the best, or cartoons, yeah, I guess it is. Okay, now here's the article that he was mentioning by John Loth, and the changing face of marketing, and this is where he quoted that beginning. What I do like is the very first section, the dominance of the customer. The customer always calls the shots, and the better you can understand that and anticipate that. The need to understand and anticipate future customers is bound to become even more essential than in the past, right? Because the pace of change and the pace of communications has dramatically changed. I think it was 1976 Olympics with Jean-Claude Keely where we first had, and I'm trying to think of the figure skater. I wasn't into figure skating ever, but Keely won 3 golds, but most of it was in the fog, and it was the first time we had live TV from Europe, and that was 1976. So this is almost 10 years before, 11 years before that. Amazing. So it's definitely worth reading. Yes, the significance of this to senior marketing executives is twofold. They cannot, indeed must not, assume that yesterday's customers will be available tomorrow. You know, one of my expressions is, yesterday will be like today unless it isn't. Adequate sources of marketing information. And when is that going to happen? Right. If we don't have good marketing information, we might direct our selling efforts might be directed at the wrong people. Right? My company's sales output can't be any better than my intelligence input. And what was funny was the 1960s were right about when the rest of corporate America started figuring out that the direct marketers just seemed to know better, have better information. And it became a boom that I joined in on in the early 80s. But it was rarely ever actually implemented, because few people really want to know the results and how their marketing worked out. And unless you are brutally honest in marketing, you'll never get to explanation, and you'll certainly never get to theory, and you will never be data-driven, because you can't predict the future with data. Anyway, on that note, have a great day. Like and share. I've been getting some shares lately, and it's very much appreciated. And I'll be driving through the plowed streets, hopefully, of Minneapolis just a little later today. Bye-bye.